Hi all, welcome to this very exciting panel. We have some really good speakers today, and believe me, each of them has come really prepared for this. They've spent a lot of time beforehand, so we believe that this session should be very insightful for each of you. And without much ado, I will just jump right in. I'll maybe start with Joseph, right? So, Joseph, like we mentioned, you've been at the within the rail industry for more than 3 decades. You are a leading international expert in this space, and we believe you have loved trains from your childhood, almost like young Sheldon. So just talk to us a little bit about, what are your views on how the rail industry is evolving, how maybe the frameworks, etc., are changing, and how technology will maybe play an important role going forward.
Many thanks, Siddhant, and good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. Many thanks for inviting me to this very illustrious panel. As you know, 2021 is the European Year of Rail, and it is absolutely adequate to have a discussion on the role of technology in rail. We also see that decarbonization of transport is one of the priorities of the European Union, and technology again will play a critical role in this. Undoubtedly, the COVID crisis, and to stay in railway terms, we see some light at the end of the tunnel, if I may so. Technology has shown its benefits also during the pandemic, and the current session where we exploit digital means of connecting ourselves is giving testimony to it. In rail, I believe digitalization offers many opportunities for cost reduction. For instance, with the 5G network, we can reduce the fixed cost in infrastructure, or we can use new propulsion technologies based on batteries or hydrogen, and I'm sure my colleagues from the industry will comment on these. Also, the trend goes towards multimodal transport chains, and these rely on networks for data sharing. And of course, such integrated networks will also provide the necessary redundancy for resilience. So technology will be key. Behind the COVID crisis, we see the climate crisis, we have the European Green Deal, and we can see the strong contribution of technology in reducing energy consumption, in improving maintenance, in increasing capacity. So it will be an exciting field, a field full of opportunity, but also a field full of opportunity for global cooperation.
Great. Thank you so much, Joseph. Dominic, I'll come to you now, right? So you've been with Alstom. We all know, Alstom is the leading rail company. You've been there for over 2 decades, and you have an interesting role now in terms of, looking at digital mobility solutions. Now, what are the key aspects that you are looking at, and in your view, what is what is driving the future of rail?
Okay. Thank you very much. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all of you. So as introduced by Joseph, of course, I will definitely develop furthermore. To meet the climate challenge, we need definitely to get more people out of their cars and get them onto public transport. And rail can achieve this objective. Rail is definitely the only green solution that can also solve the problem of congestion in cities and towns worldwide. And more specifically, the solution is digitalization in rail. It's not any rail, it's a digitized rail. So we need to increase capacity, efficiency on the existing public transportation. You know that rail is a lot of huge existing network, but we need to have it optimized, bring more capacity in order to really garden this network, develop it furthermore, and grow this sustainable mobility, which is rail. And that's the objective of digitalization in rail. We need to leverage the assets of and the benefits of digitalization to improve the efficiency of local, but also long distance rail transport to make it more cost effective to operators and more attractive to passengers, more effective in terms of efficiency, best use of the network, and of course, cost of operation. And how to do that? All the technologies, which are many of them coming from the IT technologies, more computer power, the IoT, the edge computing. Joseph was mentioning the 5G, definitely the very high-speed telecom network, virtualization of meaning a virtual machine allowing more and more software. So basically moving from more and more from hardware to software, leveraging the flexibility of software, bringing more capacity efficiency to a solution that, and in the future, we're talking about resilience, but there is a possibility to move more and more application of rail to the cloud, which offers an unlimited capacity of hosting whatever application. So there are plenty of existing use of new technology of IT and future to answer this digitalization of rail. An example, we have already shifted from hosting intelligent system in trackside infrastructure to transfer them to train software. So from the infrastructure to onboard the train, we have moved product and cables away from the infrastructure, brought more intelligence function to the train, reducing what we call trackside equipment in the rail network, and we never have a railway without any trackside equipment, but the remaining trackside equipment are more and more smart, better connected, and all these advancements prioritize software, which is easier to maintain, which offers more flexibility, make the train smarter, which is the main benefit of software over hardware. And hardware, as you all know, suffer from obsolescence. We are in an industry and in a field which require long-term planning, and the electronic components which we're using from the market, they become very quickly obsolete. So we need to have the software becoming abstracted from the hardware. So having what we call more hardware agnostic software, which will allow us to introduce more flexibility, more functionalities. And since the system can be updated more easily, there are more possibility for new functions and hardware more functions and upgrade, and therefore enhancing this objective of having increasing capacity all the time. So this approach brings a positive change to railway networks and establishes communication that is more reliable, immediate, and accessible. And as a conclusion, when rail networks become more hardware agnostic, integration and the facilitation of introducing new functionalities become easier, which is paving the way towards a more service-based railway offering. So this is definitely the solution that we see for the future of rail.
Interesting. Thank you, Dominic, for sharing that detailed view. I'll move to you, Leonardo. You're in an interesting position, right? You're looking at the future of rail connectivity, digital, all working in Italy for a huge Japanese conglomerate. So, talk to us a little bit about your views on digital technologies, innovation, and what Joseph mentioned at the top of the call, right? So the sustainable mobility of rail system. So what are your thoughts and opinions around these areas, and some examples, of course?
Well, first, thanks for inviting me, and let me add to the others rail enthusiastic here, no? And as all rail enthusiastic, we also start from the concept that rail is already the most sustainable transport solution, but we are aware that we can even do more. This is why we are enforcing sustainability in the full life cycle of our solution, including our supply chain, our manufacturing plants, and so on, saving energy as well as using a very large percentage of recycled and recyclable materials materials for our products, like our new trains. At the same time, as colleagues mentioned before, we want to support the demand. As an example, to travel fully informed, safely and securely in a multimodal environment, we are investing in providing in their hands, on their mobile, not only the available multimodal transport option, but also actual and future level of crowding in buses, trains, stations, any safety or security threat, best fare calculation opportunities, and additional services and fun along their end-to-end journey. We, as mentioned before, we are investigating this mobility world, adding people counting, distancing, and people flow management, video intelligence solution with AI, big data collection and analytics, thinking to passengers, but also providing to our major customers our integrated multimodal traffic management and ticketing system, to operators to support these new functionalities for passengers. We really believe that by putting lights on data, we can create added value services to passengers, goods, infrastructure managers and operators. This is the rationale behind the Lumada logo within Hitachi. At the same time, we do not fear the challenges of new ideas like Hyperloop. And we are pushing further our LTMS solution to manage the signaling also of such a system.
Interesting. You mentioned Hyperloop. I'll maybe come back to that as we move ahead. So Milan, coming to you, you're joining us from the opposite end, right? You're from the West Coast, coming from California, the so-called heartland of new technology. And it's interesting that you are working within the rail space for Wabtec. So please let us know your views on how new technology, especially AI, big data, analytics, etc., playing a very important role in creating new products and accelerating time to market for the traditional long cycle rail industry.
Yeah, great. First of all, thank you very much for having me here on this panel. It's an honor to speak at this, and it's a great question, and Siddhant, and I think I like the fact that you called it these potential building blocks of AI and these technologies, because that's exactly what they are, right? These are, at the end of the day, these technologies are all a part of a function that creates value, and that value is typically delivered to our customers in some type of a product, and that product could be as complex as a locomotive with embedded technology, or as simple as a software tool for our engineering teams to build. I always tell my team AI is and these digital technologies are not the product, they're an enabling function. They're a very powerful enabling function if done correctly, and they have a vast spread, Siddhant, right, across the impact it could have on the product, from the improving and accelerating the development cycle of a product and quality. Now more than ever, our engineering teams have access to data that they've never had before, right? So as engineers, designing to requirements, we have a better sense of what the product is going to experience and live with. And these advanced technologies like AI and ML really help the engineering teams extract this type of information easily, right? From running virtual simulations of control designs or physical design iterations. You can start to leverage these technologies to build neural nets to simulate things that you might not have been able to in the past. And this really helps accelerate that time to market and also quality of the product you eventually get. On the other hand, these technologies also really help enable enhancing existing products, right? A good example of that is asset health monitoring. It's been going on for a long time, but as you go on that progression of, diagnostic to predictive to prescriptive, I think everyone on the panel here knows that the amount of value creation you generate is not directly proportional to, linearly proportional to the amount of data you get, right? Yeah. As you start collecting more and more data, the complexity to extract that value becomes very difficult. And this is where these AI and ML technologies really come in to help identify opportunities that we otherwise might not have been able to see. And then finally, it's inspiring new products in our industry. Talking about what Leonardo and Dominique and Joseph were highlighting on helping increase things like capacity and efficiency. It really helping kind of open up the avenues for things that we might not even considered. And a good example of that I thought I'd highlight there is these more adoption of these visual inspection technologies, right? And bringing that computer vision technology to a different scale than what's been had before in the past, helping improve efficiency and reliability of our trains, going from those single point inspections to multi-point checks at a more repeatable rate. So it's really exciting to be in this space and our industry right now, because the impact these technologies can have is vast. And it's not only in just creating new products, it's also helping influence the life cycle, the engineering development, the quality, the safety, and it touches on all aspects. So it's an exciting time to be in this space.
Great. Thank you so much, Milan. Vivek, again, you've also invested significant time of your life within the rail industry in Europe. The interesting thing is you've been able to have the vantage point and work across different companies, different bodies, etc. Right? So you will have at least in my mind, more eclectic experience on this. So in your perspective, how have you seen the shift in this approach of your customers or the people or the companies you interact with towards digital, especially in the last 1 year through COVID?
Thanks, Siddhanta. Thanks for having me today, and really a pleasure to be with some of the eminent panelists we have today. Now, reflecting on your point, and I was following what Joseph, Dominic, Leo, and Milan talked, probably I'll start with a slightly different context. The first thing that has changed over the last 1 year is the commuter, the person who travels every day, who takes the train every day. And now, to draw a comparison, in the last 1 year period, the internet transactions or the people buying on Amazon has increased by 4x to 5x times. So what's the impact is this, that we have got used to a way of working, a way of living, and a way of, let's say, the culture, what sometimes is also called as a nanosecond culture or homo mobilis, right? Is this where you are used to have everything with a click of a button? So that's what the first change that has happened significantly over the last year is the commuter has changed significantly. So that's what's driving the smart mobility, or what Leo was talking about and Dominique was talking about. What about the mass as a solution, right? So that's the first aspect to it. The second aspect that we are seeing is significantly is the acceptance of the technologies and the infrastructure that has changed. So for example, the computing technologies that are available now are far, far more than what was available earlier. So from that perspective, what I'm seeing is, and we are working with all most of the OEMs and also with some of the network and the rail operators, is the automation and the integration, which will allow them to maximize more trains on the track, movement of more rolling stock on the same time. The second is reduction of the shutdown times and also reduce the dependency on drivers as well. So that's where the automation also comes in. And in all these areas, the technology is working as the bottom layer, as what Milan talked about, is this, that it's the enabler. It's not the product, but it's the enabler that's making this happen. The third aspect which is causing the shift is a lot of which Joseph talked about, related to the significant support that is coming in the EU. We all have been reading in the news about the Biden administration on the major infrastructure funding bill that is due to be approved in the most shortest possible time. We all are looking at this. So that's also, it's about creating a sustained environment and sustained operations. So from that perspective, having eco-mobility is one of the solutions. And eco-mobility means you're connecting through a mobility as a service solution. You're creating ecosystems of partners. And the last aspect about this is a significant funding that is coming on the upgrade of the infrastructures related to the wayside equipment, interlocking services on the cloud. Again, this was touched by Dominic as well as Leo during this. So these are the couple of things which we are clearly saying that has shifted and are really accelerated over the last 1 year period. Thank you.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you so much, Vivek. That was very interesting how you built out different pieces together. So what I'll do is I'll now move into some more specific questions that we believe the audience might be really interested to understand. And the first one, I'll maybe start with Dominic, right? Dominic, the railway industry, as you know, is undergoing significant changes. And the changes I think Vivek highlighted in terms of how customer has changed, how there is how Leo mentioned that Hyperloop is coming, and Elon Musk is also trying to disrupt this industry. Where do you see the biggest adoption of digital technology in the rail industry, Dominic?
Okay, thank you for the question. I will mention, and I'm sure Joseph will support it. I will mention ERTMS. ERTMS, this is probably one of the most challenging rail projects across Europe, which, by the way, started to be adopted beyond Europe. And as you know, years ago, each country has their own national system. It was difficult to have trains across borders, very cost effective, losing time. And the challenge of ERTMS was to have all countries to have a single control system for all the trains. So these are starting years ago, but this is now that, and for the year of rail in Europe, that the boost of ERTMS is given and necessary, and again to get this very ambitious project to what it should be, which is the complete adoption into Europe. In the 90s, we had 20 plus incompatible signaling systems in different countries. It was a major obstacle for many things. So again, ERTMS, what it is, it's about bringing, as I was saying earlier, better efficiency, cost reduction, increasing capacity, which means a lot for rail, a gradual shift from other modes of transport to rail. This is just the benefit expected for such an ambitious project. And as the railway is the greenest collective transport, increasing the number of people and also the goods to be transported from road and rail to rail is definitely leading us to more sustainable mobility. So by making the rail sector more competitive, ERTMS helps to level the playing field with the road transport and ultimately provide significant environmental gain. I will mention a typical iconic project of ERTMS, which is, for example, the busiest rail route in Europe, which is between Paris and Lyon, in which Alstom is currently participating to increase by 20% the capacity of that line without changing the infrastructure. So increasing capacity by adopting the last technology of ERTMS, which will allow to improve traffic regularity, punctuality, as I was saying, a greater line capacity, even at peak hours, and of course having the system to be compliant with European standards, and therefore to allow any train coming from any country in Europe, of course, equipped with the ERTMS equipment to run on this line in the future. That's probably what is also the objective of rail in the future, at least in Europe. So that's for us, and it's not because it's a project which started recently. That's probably one of the most important one in which we Alstom invest as much as we can, and we'll want to push and participate, and that's definitely where Rail has a big ambition.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Dominic. I also like the example that you gave to make the whole thing real. I'll move to you, Leonardo. Same question. According to you, where is the biggest adoption of digital technology in rail?
Okay, let us start with a simple example. In signaling and automation, we have always been very proud of our very robust and well-built equipment. It was therefore difficult for both of us and customer cut the umbilical cord with them. But cloud computing and software as a service is growing more and more, as Dominic mentioned before. Yes. Then we started bringing our labs and testing facility into cloud, gaining not only the benefit of a potential unlimited computational capability, but also introducing a significant amount of automation and repeatability in the process, increasing the efficiency and flexibility of the collaborative environment, as well as benefiting of all the software features you can find on almost public cloud services. Then we moved and tested one of our largest rail traffic management system on the cloud. We went directly on public cloud because our experience is that moving then on a private cloud is an easier step. Of course, we had to deal with all the careful performance evaluation of the net, the cybersecurity potential, additional risk, and so on. But we appreciated the potential and flexibility of such a solution. This does not mean that all traditional customers feel comfortable with such a solution. But attention is increasing, eventually moving on a private cloud first. The pandemic also made clear the benefit of a disaster recovery system located somewhere else in the cyberspace. By the way, last year I saw for the first time a customer asking explicitly for a traffic management system as software as a service. Finally, this year we patented the solution to have on cloud our interlocking central control system and radio block center, the core of the RTMS we discussed before. This is a system prototype aiming of C4 application. Other competitors are testing such a solution, and some infrastructure managers are defining more precisely the requirements for them. As usual, the relevant standardization framework will follow. The combination of cloud computing on one side and green and low power edge computing on field with IoT, COTS devices and some wireless, the 5G mentioned before also, communication, is a clear trend to simplify, standardize and spread digital signaling as a service, bringing the RTMS at lower cost also on low traffic lines, taking care of the commuters that we are not forget. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Leonardo. Those is very, very clear how you structured each of them together. Milan, I would come to you. What are your thoughts, and you being at the center of digital, right? So where do you see the biggest adoption?
So I agree a lot with Dominique and Leonardo on their answers, and I'll just add a couple of pieces to it. I completely agree. One of the biggest technology adoptions in the US here has been on the network-wide PTC implementation on the IETMS side of things. And what's really exciting about that is it lays a great foundation to go after all the things that we were talking about before, competing against that other mode of transportation, multi-mode operation, more dense trains coming in, higher capacity. And I think that is where we as an industry have an edge over the other mode of transportation, where we can really have that infrastructure as a foundation, and we put that safety layer over it, right? Mm-hmm. Which is one of the biggest challenges when we look at the other industries of, let's say, on road. The tails of the distribution for that type of operation on automation is very challenging. So this is where a space where I see our industry having a real big leg up. And I agree. I see that as one of the biggest, technology investments and adoptions that is occurring today in our world. The other piece is, once you start getting more and more of these trains and the highly dense trains, more capacity, at the end of the day, to really shift onto rail, you need to have that service reliability. You have to have solid reliability of the train, visibility and access. And that's where I'm seeing a lot of this other automation and inspection technologies start to really grow even further, right? It's been going on for some time in certain point solutions and pockets, but I really kind of see the adoption of those type of inspections integrated with onboard systems, offboard systems, to really automate as much of that inspection capability as you can, driving overall service reliability up in operations. And those are two pockets, just to complement what Leonardo and Dominique said, where I see as these operations coming in.
Interesting. Thank you so much, Milan. So, Joseph, I'll come to you, right? So we've heard different folks within the industry talk about how they are looking at technology, where the adoption has been. According to you, what is the role ERA is playing to accelerate some of this digitization journey? What are your thoughts around this, and how do you believe the industry can go faster and higher from here through digital?
Well, perhaps I should first explain the role of ERA as a European authority. And we have two main roles. We have a traditional role, which is to provide recommendations to the European Commission on railway safety and interoperability. But since 2019, we have a new role, and that new role is being European Authority for Authorization of Vehicles and Certification of Railway Undertakings. Dominic and Leonardo have mentioned ERTMS. By coincidence, ERA, we are the system authority of ERTMS, and as mentioned by the previous speakers, ERTMS, like PTC, can constitute the backbone for a digital connected railway. The full deployment of ERTMS remains a challenge, but it is a very essential step towards the digital railways. We have ambitions for 2030, but it will clearly deliver an important transformation of the market. We are also the system authority of other digital applications for telematics. In Europe, it's known under TAP and TAF, telematics applications for passengers, telematics applications for freight. And as ERA, we operate a number of registers, register of infrastructure, register of vehicles, register of national rules. And for this context, we have started another important initiative, which is called the Linked Data Initiative. So on the basis of ontologies, we want to create a possibility for seamless data exchange between data sets owned by various data owners in order to reduce the overall cost. We have successfully completed the pilot phase 2020, and our management board has just decided that this should be the future default for all development of databases, registers, and also the specification for data exchange mandated by the European legal framework. Finally, our authority tasks are managed through a web portal. So we could say we have the authority in the cloud, not just the interlocking and the radio block center in the cloud. We have a one-stop shop, and the workshop for authorization and certification is fully digitalized. This was also the reason, by the way, why we did not see any interruption during the pandemic, because the tool itself is in the cloud. The workflow is completely electronic. It doesn't matter where you are in the world. You can always do your steps. You get notified. And we continued as if nothing had happened. I believe Milan and others mentioned the resilience, and of course, we need to mention the risks and challenges that we have with digital technology. Artificial intelligence being one, cybersecurity being another one. We have to make sure that our systems are resilient and are secure, and this will help to modernize the railway operations. And I believe digitalization will be the most important industrial project, and it will clearly give railways an edge in comparison with other modes of transport.
Wow, that is excellent, Joseph. So very heartening to see the regulatory authority not just keeping step, but also accelerating some of the modernization of this space. So thank you so much, Joseph. Vivek, I will take you up on your point that you started with, right? You mentioned, there are many technologies, you've seen many customers deploy them, but at some point in time, they do struggle in terms of showing the revenue impact out of it or the real benefit out of it, right? And so the question to you is, which technology or application do you believe has the power to really enable the biggest positive revenue impact for this particular industry?
Thanks, Siddhant, for pointing this out. Now, while we have a very high-powered panel here, so from some few cents from what our experience is and what we are seeing is so there are three axes to the overall when we look at the revenue model impact, and I would be covering more about most from a commuter perspective. So one axis is on the customer, the commuters. The other axis is on the process, which is related to the operations. And the third, where you can see the revenue maximization, is to the products and the platforms. Now, when you are looking at the commuter perspective, especially within the digital context, we are talking about a Web 2.0. Now, when you look at a Web 2.0, you're talking about a 3.4 billion of a world population that has a network effect, and on the scale you can reach. So from that perspective, what it means is that it would be really important to an extent how much the customer reach, the network availability and the connectivity maximization would be very important. Dominic touched about one of the most important or the busy routes. Here is what an operators are looking at to provide the best of the experience on the commuters through the digital services perspective, where let's say 37% of the operations of a particular route for an operator actually gives about 80% of the revenues. So from an operator and a commuter perspective, the targeting of the services in terms of which could be relevant to proximity-based, push-based informations. It could be also passenger guidance, while it could be also incorporating certain value to generate in terms of promotions. That's the first aspect from a commuter point of view. On a process perspective, the way what I look at, the predictive maintenance would be one of the key technologies that will be, which is becoming extremely important. This is from a perspective that on an average, about for 40 trains, an operator has to keep about close to 6 trains on standby. Now, with the predictive maintenance in play, an operator can have at least another 5 trains who could be running on the route. So overall, the additional capacity that's available for the operator is over 13%. And this has a phenomenal benefit in terms of turning it to dollars. So while predictive maintenance, while to an onlooker sometimes look like a very, very jazzy word that you are predicting a failure, but how you are converting into dollar is where you can see an additional capacity coming in. I think Alstom has worked on the Health Hub solution, which is well in place, which is focusing on reducing the takt time on the operation cost, whereby it increases the capacity, reliability, efficiency, and the performance of the overall network. The third aspect is about the platform-based model, where it's become more and more popular, and especially from a perspective that you're talking about the network effect on the scale and the connectivity. So the platform is creating an ecosystem where there are new revenue models are coming into play, which could be pay per use or pay as you go. And of course, push-based notifications, wherein there could be promotions, for example, for commuters for a specific station. There could be an ecosystem from where they could be addressing certain restaurants or certain other service providers in that case. So these are some of the three axes or the key areas that we have seen, which is creating a definitive revenue lines for some of both the OEMs and the operators' perspective.
Perfect, Vivek. Dominic, same question to you. Where do you see? I mean, which technology are you seeing in your company or in your experience to be giving the biggest revenue impact?
Yes, thank you for the question. I will mention automation.
Mm-hmm.
Because automation has a great power to make transport smarter and to address many of the long-lasting problems of transport, with congestion, time and productivity loss, road fatalities, greenhouse gas emissions. So automation. I have some experience on metro automation, because automation started on metro many years ago, and as you know, many of the metros now are driverless. That brings a lot of benefits. Of course, trains can run closer to each other. You can increase the network capacity. Trains can also run in a uniform way, leading to a more effective use of the energy provided by the utility network. And finally, automation brings what we call elastic capacity, meaning that you can allow more trains during peak hours, remove trains during night, and so on. An example on which automation is being applied in metro, but now I will talk about automation in the so-called mainline networks, which brings challenges because unlike a metro, the mainline network is by essence open, and there are some more hazards which the network facing. But this is definitely the future. As an example, on a rail network, you have sometimes and in many occasions a mixed traffic between freight trains and passenger trains. And in Europe, I know it's different in the US. In Europe, the passenger trains have the priority, and which brings different issues for the freight trains. For example, they need to wait. They have a shorter time slot. They stop, give way to other trains, start again. And that means a great amount of waiting time for drivers, and of course loss of productivity and cost for the operators. Therefore, here automation. This is where automating in the future freight train can bring a great interest in commercially first, and number two, in terms of overall network efficiency. Of course, automation is not the be-all or end-all. For some type of train, we don't expect them to be fully automated. We expect automation to be applied in specific cases. So the one I was mentioning. For specific purposes. So, for example, we are working for autonomous freight trains. We had some successful already test in the so-called grade of automation 2, which is allowing the train to operate automatically. So we've done that, for example, with SNCF in France and other partners. we have also performed successfully the implementation of automatic train operation into other ERTMS level 2. And we are also been rewarded for an innovation prize in Germany with autonomous passenger trains. So definitely automation is what I would mention as the key technology that we can apply for the future of the mainline railway.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Dominic. And I know, Milan, you had a very good point around the freight, and it's interesting how Dominic covered a lot of that in what he spoke. And we also had an audience question specifically on freight. Dominic, I think you almost covered that in its entirety. So, Milan, what I'll do is I'll come to you for the next question, and if you had any points on this one, you could add on that. So, what I'll do is in the interest of time, I'll just combine the couple of questions, right? One is, what are the big, we've seen digitization have its big promises for the rail industry, but there are definitely implementation challenges, scaling challenges, security challenges, etc. And you would have seen most of them firsthand. So according to you, what is the biggest, what are some of these biggest issues, and how do you really overcome them?
Yeah, that's a great question because there's two that come into mind for me. The first one is kind of that integration and interoperability. We were talking about it before. We are a mature industry. We've been around for 100 plus years, and with that comes mature systems. And there was a quote from one of the CEOs of one of the Class 1 railroads that I really liked. He said, "In our world, it's like we have to design the plane while landing the plane." And I was like, oh, that's great. It's a great assessment of that, because we don't have the ability to say, oh, let's stop everything, let's introduce the technology and try it back again, right? Or have that greenfield development side. So one of the biggest challenges, I think, is that interoperability with the systems, how to make sure that we integrate these new technologies in a safe, secure way. Joseph mentioned on security and resilience. This is very, very important, especially when you're using technologies like AI to be able to explain decisions, and then slowly integrate it. We can't take the notion of throw everything kind of out and bring something new in. So that's one of the. In the interest of time, I'll accelerate my response there. The second piece, which I really want to highlight there, is which is not spoken about enough, is culture and change management. Is a big piece as well, right? And I've experienced this issue with introducing a new piece of technology, and it seems great on paper from a technology perspective. We're very excited, and then culture eats strategy for breakfast, right? And really being able to understand that and integrate that technology, in a strategic, incremental way. I mean, when I say incremental, I don't want it to be like we slow it down, right? It has to be strategic on how you get it in. You have to think about that as part of the equation on the top end, because if you don't, that adoption is going to die. That adoption is going to die. That technology is going to take a nosedive. You need to understand who the customers are, what our customers need, how they operate as best as you can, and then really try and build that coalition and partnership in the front end. And Dominic was mentioning working with SNCF and in their program there. I think it's great to have that coalition, because if you have that buy-in early on, that can really help accelerate some of the adoption of these technologies. Otherwise, it's a game changer, or it's a game stopper rather.
Right. Perfect. Thank you so much, Milan. That was very well articulated. Leonardo, I'll come to you, right? And then we'll move to the next question. I'm sorry, Dominic, we'll get you to the next one and not on this. But where do you see, Leonardo, the biggest challenge, and how are you addressing some of them?
Thanks, Siddhant. Let me continue on AI. Artificial intelligence, with all its different classes, is an example that brings inside many of the challenges you mentioned. In rail, we value determinism and predictability, while often AI is raising concerns on its suitability for functions like obstacle detection, signal recognition, or even much simpler Kalman filter for multi-sensoring in train localization. More generally for automation, Dominique was very clear on it, and we are together on the autonomous freight train project. Will we be able to see Senelec standards giving detailed tables on AI? I bet yes, but the truth is the end of Joseph, if I may joke a bit. The same applies if we use AI to suggest to operators of a traffic management system the best way to address anomaly situation, or the predictive intelligent asset management Vivek and Milan explained very well already. So first point is to create a trust in AI in rail traditional application. As usual, till will be achieved step by step, and on the practical consideration that AI has real benefits and capabilities in performing certain functions. Maybe we will combine some traditional deterministic software to build some safety boundaries around. As you probably know, the European community is providing rules on AI application, mentioning also the case in which such applications are safety critical or sensitive. Regarding privacy, very quickly, we are also using image processing to evaluate people counting and distancing for video intelligence application. And you often need clean images to train a neural network. Access to such images is not always simple, and we must comply with GDPR. But generally speaking, many AI algorithms may need to have access to sensitive information. In our facility in Naples, we transformed a large area, more than 1,000 square meters, often crowded, in a live video intelligence lab, and it costed my team not a small effort to convince human resources and unions to as you can imagine.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Leonardo. So, gentlemen, we are having a great conversation. I know we are very close to our committed 1 hour. So, if it's okay, I'll kind of extend it by 10 minutes because, I have two really interesting questions and I really want your thoughts on each of them. So, Joseph, I'll come to you, and you've heard, some of the key challenges that the folks from the industry have mentioned. How is ERA facilitating or advising or smoothing some of these areas? And especially the audience has asked questions specifically around green and sustainability, etc. So your thoughts on that, Joseph?
Well, we have two types of interaction. One is the formal part and the other one is the informal. On the aspects related to the sustainability and to the European Green Deal, we had loads of informal interaction, and we have just published on our website a report, the second report on the contribution of rail to the Green Deal. The second one focuses on freight. And we share those information through webinars, events similar to our panel today. Then, by law, we are, of course, required to have formal interaction with stakeholders. And there are, again, two levels. The one is we need to moderate some networks. There is a network of the national authorities. There is also the so-called network of representative bodies. And the companies represented here, Hitachi, Alstom, even Wabtec through their European subsidiary, are members of UNIFE, and UNIFE is a representative body with which we have to formally interact. And the last point is whenever regulation needs to be updated, we need to organize so-called working parties, and we need, which is quite interesting, we need to reach consensus amongst the stakeholders. And of course, from a technology perspective, consensus is not always the best solution, because if you have some innovative ideas, these might not survive the majority vote. Nonetheless, there is a lot to be gained from cooperation. I believe specifically in rail innovation, we need to cooperate. No single enterprise, no single railway undertaking, no single supplier is able to carry the burden of innovation on their own.
Perfect, Joseph. How you spoke about, the different components and value chain providers coming together. So that's a perfect segue into my next question. And I'll first have Milan get his view, and of course, Vivek with his broad perspective get in on this. How do you see, Milan, companies leveraging ecosystem partners and different portions of the value chain? It could be startups, universities, service providers come together for especially on digital capabilities and building products faster, etc.
Yeah, I think this is a critical point, and couldn't agree more with Joseph in his last statement there. Very well said. My thoughts there are the technology that we are going to be developing in the next 10 years is far too complex to be gone at it alone, right? And this is where ecosystem partners are key. And you're kind of seeing that shift from these hierarchical type operations to these ecosystem and network plays, where you can really help accelerate. So things like startups, and also partnerships across the industry, yes, and building those type of coalitions. Outside of the industry as well, looking at startups and academia are very, very valuable partnerships that we as an industry, one, need to get a bit more comfortable with wanting to do it and see how we can engage and interact with. And a couple of, and my team does this often, and we've learned the hard way on what works and what doesn't in certain cases. And it's really important to understand, what are the expertise of these partners as well, and their interests. So when it comes to universities and startups, it's one thing to say, oh, hey, here's a data set, tell me what you can do with it, or something like that, versus really understanding where their skill sets and expertise lie and where their interest to grow is, and see if you can marry that with what we as a company or industry is looking to accomplish. That's where I've seen, that partnership start to really have a big impact. And one thing Wabtec has been pushing is this Freight 2030 vision here in America, and we're partnering with Carnegie Mellon to really help advance a lot of those technologies in automation and robotics, partnering with us, and I think is a key enabler to accelerate it. So I'm a big fan. There's no one easy equation for it, right? Because it's pretty complicated on how we do it. But it's a key piece in order to be successful.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Milan. Vivek, your take on this one.
So, it's fine. Yeah, I was just checking if my mic is on. So, just to taking a while, as Milan outlined, from our perspective and how we view it. So there are about 4 core technologies which are in play from the digitalization perspective. One is the IoT, the second is the cloud, third the data analytics and the automation. And from that, it is touching on some of the key areas around the passenger, around the infrastructure, the rolling stock management, manufacturing, and signaling. So how you need to see how the ecosystem after then has to evolve around each of the technologies, as also the areas which it is touching. Now, let me give an example where we work with it's a very good example where Science worked with one of our customers in UK, an important customer. At the same time, we work with certain partners to deliver the world's first ATO ETCS system on the mainline passenger services. Now, this is the Thameslink project in UK. It's related to automation that we delivered, and we did work with a good amount of ecosystem partners there. Now, while we are looking at, again, coming back to the business, how it makes the business sense for the operator, for the manufacturer, for the commuters. Just to give in net terms, when we did deliver this project along with our customers, what we were able to give was a additional 24 trains that were running per hour in each direction, with 70% more seats that were available in the central London. It was also connecting and linking new communities and cutting journey times. So that's an important aspect. Just wanted to highlight how the ecosystem partner and the ecosystem play is evolving. Now, to an extent where the digital services market is slated to be about, by 2024, about $75 billion, with the major chunk coming in Europe, as Joseph already mentioned on the various guidelines that have to be that are being worked out. So this is how we see the ecosystem landscape evolving. The last aspect just wanted to add, for example, Cyient also invested in Silas. This is a company that's very specific to cybersecurity on the rail products, making the product secure. This was at the startup and the early stage funding. So in Cyient, we have created also an investment fund to support the core technologies within our digital BU. And we call them as the technologies, the studios, which are working with different ecosystem partners. So to add to it.
Excellent, Vivek. That's really covering multiple facets and really good to see how the collaboration can actually be achieved. Coming to that, my final question, and I'll want Leonardo and then Dominic to have the final word on this one. How do you see the evolution of some of these new collaborative business models? Especially, do you see them accelerating because of the pandemic? What are your thoughts on how do you see them evolve, Leonardo?
So I was trying to summarize. I was saying for freight, we noted that with the pandemic, goods are more resilient than people regarding the transportation need. And this is something we all need to put attention on. Is rail helping the transport of goods in the most efficient and intelligent way? Probably not yet. Also, the pandemic further stressed and pushed some clear trends. The need to increase automation is one of these, but also mobility. Be more informed and secure during traveling is gained the bigger attention as we discussed. Finally, with humans closed in their houses, the nature gained some space, and I'm happy to see increasing attention on sustainability, as we mentioned earlier. So in short, I'm not surprised if the three most used words in the plans to launch the economy and therefore in the new investment are green, digital, and innovation. As Joseph highlighted, we operation between countries, East and industry. Or better, an innovative global and multi-sector group like Hitachi can add value to all of these, and this is what we are actually working on.
Okay, perfect, Leonardo. Thank you so much. Dominic, I know you had very interesting thoughts on this. Please share the same with us on the collaborative models and how you see them evolve.
So I will talk about two different topics. One for a topic about healthy mobility, and the second one about cybersecurity. Both topics which collaboration is helping to meet the challenges. Of course, as we know, we need a healthier mobility, and to do that, we need to have, I would say, a continuous adaptation of the capacity of the transportation system and the demand of the passengers. For example, to avoid crowded vehicles, to avoid crowded platforms. And to do that, we need to have the different stakeholders, operators, technology providers, and so on to share data. Data sharing is very important. That's probably the only way to allow to adapt the capacity and to do so to predict demand. We need to predict demand. We need to predict the passenger flows. And to predict the particular, which is a very difficult area, because, for example, in pandemic, as we all know, the habits of each of commuters have changed. So it's not an easy task to predict demand, but this is definitely a challenge that altogether, by sharing data, we need to achieve as much as possible. I will give a simple example that of a collaboration that we have achieved in Panama City. So Panama City opened a second line a while ago, and because of the success of that line, platform staircases in the metro were crowded. And what we did is that we shared data as much as we could, and in order to try predicting demand. And thanks to that, and by implementing our own algorithms, we have been able to predict alerts 30 minutes before a crowd would happen, either in a staircase or the platform. And to do that, we have, of course, reduced these crowded areas, and travel time was optimized by 12%, as measured by Panama operator. The second area I want to touch is cybersecurity. As I was saying, cybersecurity, this is the flip side of digitalization. Of course, the more digitalization, the more risk of cyber attacks. And cybersecurity, this is a huge challenge because, as we all see in today's world, there are more and more sophisticated cyber criminality, and we cannot solve this problem in silo. We need to collaborate. And in Alstom, we have been developing partnerships with other industries, experts in cybersecurity. And Vivek, I would mention the same company. We have invested also in Silas, this Israeli cyber expert, which have decided to really be a unique, a real cyber expert. So we are doing. So we have invested, but also we are building together some collaborative solutions, bringing their expertise into intrusion detection systems and our solution to offer to our customers, of course, if possible, and as much as we can, resilient system to cybersecurity. So again, cybersecurity requires collaboration.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Dominic. This has been one of the most deepest, richest panel discussions I've had in a very long time, and we do at least 2 in a week. Each of the panelists, I must thank all of you. You're really well prepared. I think I can go on for another hour, but we just have to honor everyone's time. I did take about 10-15 minutes more. Thank you very much. I'll move to Vivek for helping me with the final closure. Thanks, and any final thoughts that you might have, Vivek. Please take it over.
Thanks, Siddhant. And first, let me thank each one of you, Leonardo, Milan, Joseph, Dominic. It was a pleasure to have this discussion, and Siddhant and the team in orchestrating this discussion together. I'm also thankful to the people who took their time out to join this panel discussion. And from our side, I think one of the points which I want to make, and both we are working with Hitachi Rail, we are working with Alstom and some of the other key players in the market for last more than 20 years. So from the experience perspective, probably Cyient is the #1 company from India in terms of delivering integrated solutions within the railway industry. And this is one of the reasons why we are really taking many more initiatives into the digitalization area, considering that we have a knowledge of, let's say, last more than 20 years of working on many legacy infrastructures that have happened. And with the digitalization, considering that we have our own network services unit, also we have a software services unit, how we are able to use our various strengths within our company in order to provide the digital solutions landscape as it is evolving in the rail industry. Let me try to make a point, and I maybe Leonardo or Dominic or Milan can react to it. See, until so far, everybody looked at automation, automated cars, and that made the industry, automotive industry, look very amazing, and sorry to use the word sexy as well. I think the digitalization, automation, and smart mobility and eco-mobility is changing the face and the way people look at the mobility as the industry. I think that's the different phase which everybody is seeing into the market. I think that's why I would like to thank you all, and I would let Leonardo or Dominic also react to my point as well, how the phase is changing about this. I think Milan has gone offline, or sorry. Yeah, you can react to that. Is how the overall outlook is changing.
Okay, just a very quick reaction. First, we should be more proud of our rail sector, not looking at the others. Let's say, 20 years ago, I was responsible of the safety certification of Metro Copenhagen that has been for 5 years in a row best metro in the world, and it was fully automated 20 years ago. So rail has a very strong level of technology that sometimes we forget. And this is important to remind, because sometimes we have a problem to reach the new generation and to push them to join rail due to this. Rail is cool. Okay, so let's try to first of all to remind that what is important is that we don't have to close ourselves to new technology, to new challenges. And automotive as an economy of scale, that is something that we cannot ignore. So I think we need to look this more as an opportunity that as a threat. And this is the way in which we are looking to that. And many of the big players like Hitachi are working on many sectors, on many things, trying to build this sharing of knowledge that is the key element for innovation.
I would just complement by saying that rail has been recognized as being probably the safest, the greenest way of transportation. We need to continue, and it's not a surprise that this is the year of rail, as mentioned by Joseph, and rail has a bright future. All the conditions, the context here today is present to expect from rail even more than what it has delivered so far. So we are in a tremendously exciting industry, and we have to continue to really push so that and to meet the expectation of the authorities, of the people, into this exceptional way of transportation, and to use the technology and digitalization for the best use and the best benefit of rail for all the operators and the passengers. Yeah.
Perfect.
If I could add 5 seconds, I'm sorry I was in and out, but I couldn't agree more. It is so exciting I think we're at the cusp of some very exciting things. We're going to have some big challenges coming up in the next 10 to 15 years. Freight, passenger, congestion, climate. We are a solution. As I speak to my team and as I look to recruit to come in, I say, you want to come in and have an impact on the world and work on some exciting technology. This is an exciting industry to be in. When we talk about automation, with the right context, we have a path to levels of automation that can be accelerated, right? And make some significant impacts. And when you look at that decarbonization and shifting to rail side of it directly, from a societal impact, from an environmental impact, from an efficiency impact, what we have today is very valuable. And we have to be comfortable as an industry of also thinking differently on how we leverage this infrastructure and these assets that we have to meet the demands of the needs of our consumers, our passengers in the next decade. That is one thing we have to keep in mind as an industry in order to meet that challenge and that excitement, and we're going to unlock a lot of opportunities there, in my mind.
Great. Well, thank you all so much. This has been very, very exciting. Thank you. And I think you've set up the context for our Encore as well. So we'll hope to regather this audience again very soon and take this discussion forward. And we'll have some more pertinent questions. Thank you so much. Have a good day, each of you. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you all. Bye.
Bye-bye.